Hello, good morning to everybody. My name is Kunle Ologe, and you're welcome to our Friday live session. And yes, we are here. We are back. For those of you who have been wondering what has happened to Friday live, I took a holiday to take my wife for our anniversary. Forgive me. Now I am back and we are here. Who is excited to be here? Oh, I already see people are here. Adesewa, I see you. Omobola, I see you. Hello to you. You are the first to be here today, this beautiful Friday. And I am so happy to have you here. Well, today we're going to be discussing a very important topic. Of course, all the topics are always important, but this one is very important. And today we're talking about dealing with abuse in marriage. Dealing with abuse in marriage. And I see you, Lucy, Dr. Celestina. I see you. Welcome to everybody. You know what you need to do? Share this link, share it widely, share it to your friends right now as we're speaking, share it to your family, share it to your colleagues, share it to your mentees, share it to your church members, share it to everybody. Let's sit down and talk about this matter of abuse because it is very important that we talk about it. Okay, I see you, Vera. I see you, Choma. I see you. Oh, my beautiful wife is here. My yellow wife, the yellow wife of the governor. She was the one that gave me the name governor, and that name has stuck on me worldwide. And I celebrate you, Ma, for being here. Okay, we're going to dive right in because, as usual, we don't want to waste your time. We spend just 1 hour here and we let you continue with your Friday. So we are here again to spend 1 hour. By the way, are you subscribed to this channel that you're watching this on? Yeah, this YouTube channel, the Marriage Seal Academy by Kunle Ologe. If you are not yet subscribed, just subscribe to it so that when videos drop, you just get the notifications immediately. Okay? All right. And then, of course, if you are subscribed, I'm sure you should have watched our video of our 15th wedding anniversary trip to the Maldives. A beautiful time we had there. It is something you must do regularly with your spouse. Get time, just you and your spouse, to just disappear somewhere. It mustn't be somewhere very far. It might even be just the next town, the next city, the next state, anywhere that is nice enough for both of you to just stay together alone for 1, 2, 3, 4 nights. That will be splendid. So if you've not watched that video, watch it for inspiration and share it also to family and friends. Okay, so we're going to dive right in right now, and we're talking about dealing with abuse in marriage. What is abuse? That's where we want to start from. What is abuse? Now, abuse in marriage is somebody or dealing with somebody cruelly or violently, especially regularly or repeatedly. So when somebody is being dealt with cruelly, violently, repeatedly, regularly, the person is being abused. Now, this is very wide. This particular definition is very wide because when we are talking about abuse, it's beyond just physical violence. When you mention abuse, the first thing that people think is physical violence. No, that's just one type of abuse. In fact, today, one of the first things we're going to do is to look at 8 different types of abuse. Did you know there are that many? There are even much more than 8. But let's streamline it and look at 8 different forms of abuse, because you may actually be going through abuse in your marriage and you don't even know that it is abuse. So let's go through 8 different types of abuse in marriage. Now, the first one is physical. That's the one that is common. That's the one everybody calls abuse. And what's physical abuse? Physical abuse is when you are hitting somebody. You are hitting, you are shoving, you are shaking. In counseling sessions, I've had reasons to ask couples, is there any physical violence? They say no. And then while they're going on and they're explaining to me what's happening in the marriage, I hear something like, and then she just held my tie and shook me. I say, okay, that holding tie and shaking is physical violence. It's physical abuse. Oh, he just held my shoulders and shook me very well or shifted me aside. That is abuse. Oh, I'm helping somebody today to start to recognize what abuse is. And I see you, Ogechuku, saying, longest time, Coach Kunle. Happy to be back here. Yes, I'm also happy to be back here with you people. So, physical abuse is a very bad type of abuse. In fact, it's an abuse that can inflict bodily harm on the person being abused. So the abuser can inflict injury on the person being abused. And physical abuse is no, no, no. It's very, very dangerous. We've had cases upon cases of people who have been physically abusing their spouses, and eventually it ends up in very damaging injuries, maybe damaging a part of the body, an eye, a nose, a mouth, a hand, a leg, one limb, or ultimately causing death. And you know, many times the abuser did not intend to kill. But you cannot determine how far your abuse will go. You see, when you think that just shoving, for instance, is not abuse, what if you shove that person aside? The person falls and hits his head or her head on something and goes. You never can say. So when I hear people saying, well, I didn't really beat her, I just hit her, I say, sir, that hitting, just hitting her, do you know it can kill her? Have you not heard of people that they just slapped? Simple slap. Nothing, no hard, nothing. And the person falls and that's all. The person is gone. Gone for life. So physical abuse is a no, no, no. And that is the first form of abuse that we're looking at. So you need to be very, very careful with what it is that you do. We're going to go to what causes, abuse. So we'll sit there a while and discuss those things. But let's just continue to look at the different types of abuse that we have. And yes, Dr. Celestina, you can't determine how far it goes. And it goes very, very far. In many cases, there was a movie that my wife and I watched. Was it this year or late last year? Called Nganu. Nganu was a Cameroonian movie. Yeah, a Cameroonian movie. Beautiful movie. It's a movie that talks about physical violence. Physical abuse. It talks about parenting. It talks about marriage generally. It talks about self-discipline. It talks about development. It's a beautiful movie. It's sad. So let me warn you before that it's a beautiful movie to watch, Nganu. And it's on Netflix. Now, in this movie, the guy physically assaulted his wife. It was so terrible. He assaulted her, gave her injuries, almost deformed her. And of course, as the story goes, eventually he left for the military, came back, and the wife had married somebody else, ran away from his abuse. So physical abuse is very, very terrible, and it should be avoided. And I hear somebody saying, yeah, the men are the ones abusing the women. It is not true. There are a lot of women physically assaulting men. A lot. It's just that you don't hear it because the society, the way society looks at it, they kind of cover it up because it's like, in quote, a big shame to the man. So somehow you don't get to hear those stories of women physically abusing their husbands. I had a counseling session once, and the woman was the one who brought the issue of, my husband slapped me. And while we were going through the session, by the time the husband now told his own part of the story, this woman has been abusing the husband, beating, hitting with all kinds of things, tearing clothes, biting, all kinds of things. And yet, it was her own she saw as physical abuse. So it happens on both sides of the divide. Let's move on. The next type of abuse we're looking at is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is when the emotion of the person being abused is tampered with. And one of the ways you can tamper with the emotions of somebody is when you ignore the person, when you belittle the person, when you make it look as if the person has no feelings. So when you have a problem, you want the person to be there. When the person has a problem, you ignore the problem completely as if it doesn't exist. I had a session once where somebody said that my problem is my husband. Even when I tell him I'm sick, he does not even ask me how I'm doing. That's emotional abuse. Somebody is saying, coach, is it? Yes, it is. When you ignore the feeling of your wife or your husband, remember, this person is now your spouse. If the person was not your spouse, that can be excused away. But this person is your spouse. This person needs your ultimate presence in their emotional life, and you are not there. So you need to be careful about emotional abuse. In fact, verbally abusing somebody is emotional abuse, because when you insult somebody, the person feels very, very bad. The person feels demeaned. So insulting is part of emotional abuse. And for some of us, we do it without even knowing. I've had men who have said, if you hear the things that come out of my wife's mouth against me, they are unprintable. And in some cases, I've actually witnessed it in sessions where the wife or the husband will actually now start abusing the other spouse right there in front of me. And then I'm now imagining, if you can do this in front of me, then how much of it do you do at home? So you need to understand that verbal abuse is emotional abuse. That's what it is. Insulting, using terrible words that cannot be printed against your spouse, forgetting that your spouse is you. Your spouse is actually you, because the two shall become one. Is that not what God said? So every time you insult your spouse, you're actually insulting yourself. It was Daddy Gio that said that if you married a foolish man or an idiot of a man, then you yourself, you are foolish or you are an idiot. So when you call your spouse, your husband, your wife, you call him an idiot, call her an idiot, call your spouse foolish, stupid, nothing to write home about, gold digger, witch, wizard. I've heard all kinds of things. I've counseled for 11 years now. I've heard things that you won't believe happens in marriages, but it happens. Life. Calling each other witches and wizards. That is emotional abuse. Okay, Chukwu has added, saying talking down on your spouse. Yes, that's emotional abuse. You talk down, make your spouse feel less than himself or less than herself. It's closely related to another type of abuse, and we'll get there. So let's look at the next type of abuse. The next type of abuse is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse. This one, especially in African culture, is not really seen as abuse, but it is. When you give unwanted touch to your spouse, or you force your spouse to have sex with you, that's sexual abuse. When you also deprive your spouse of sex, that's sexual abuse. In fact, in law, I'm sure we have lawyers here. In law, a marriage is not consummated if there has not been sex in the marriage. So in law, if you refuse to have sex with your spouse, it's actually you not consummating the marriage. That means you guys, by law, are not completely married. And you can easily get a divorce, because the law will grant you the divorce if one party claims that the other party is not giving me sex. So on that basis, I want to call for a divorce. So there are so many forms of sexual abuse. There is rape in marriage. Whenever I say this, people look at me and say, Coach, what do you mean? What is rape? Forcing another person to have sex against their will, right? That's rape. It happens in marriage when your spouse has told you, both verbally, with gesticulations, always has told you, I am not interested now. And you force, using physical force, to force or coerce your spouse into sleeping with you. You have raped your spouse. Somebody is saying, Coach, don't go there. Don't go there. I will go there because these are the things that we hear as counselors. That is rape. So, yes, there is rape in marriage. Be careful. In some countries, in some climes, you can actually take it. I don't think it's applicable yet in Nigeria. I'm not very sure of that. The lawyers can help us with that. But in the Western world, you can be charged with raping your wife. You can be charged with raping your husband. Somebody say, Coach, how can somebody rape husband? You've not heard the things that I have heard. So, sexual abuse is there. That's unwanted touch or pressure to have sex. Number 4, intellectual abuse. Intellectual abuse. This one, like I said at the beginning, some people are they are being abused, but they don't even know. Intellectual abuse is when you attack the opinion of your spouse. You are intellectually abusing your spouse. So your spouse says something and you make it look like this thing you have said does not make sense. I mean, outrightly. For every time your spouse tries to intellectually relate with you, you make it look as if he or she is lower in thinking capacity than you are. A lot of people do this, even without knowing. It's arrogance of knowledge. When you have arrogance of knowledge, you do these things and treat your spouse as if your spouse is an idiot, as if your spouse does not have the mental capacity to think. That's intellectual abuse. And people do this. So we need to be careful yet again. Another type of abuse is financial abuse. Yeah, financial abuse. That's a real abuse in marriage. So financial abuse is when you have kind of tricked your spouse into believing that you will bring it all, you will provide. And you eventually use that method to stop your spouse from making financial decisions. You handle everything in finance, you cut your spouse off finance. That's financial abuse. Financial abuse can also include when you are the one who is overspending in the house. So your spouse is trying to manage finances. You are just eroding without any recourse. You are just eroding. That is financial abuse. So financial abuse includes depriving. It also includes overusing. And your spouse does not have control anymore. You have usurped the power completely to yourself. So you overspend, your spouse complains, you shut your spouse down. That's financial abuse. That is financial abuse. So let's move on. There is also mental abuse. And that's the one I said is close to emotional abuse. Now, mental abuse is when your spouse is impacting your sense of reasoning. So making you look at things as if you cannot mentally, you don't have the mental capacity to do some things. That's mental abuse. Sometimes you even force your spouse to do things which is against your spouse's thought process. That's mental abuse. And then your spouse has to do those things, and your spouse eventually even starts accepting those things. That's mental abuse. You've heard of people who chain spouses, and the spouse is okay. You ask the spouse, are you okay with this chaining? The spouse will tell you, yes, this is for my own good, because my husband or my wife has told me that if I go out into the public, I will be harmed. What is that? You have completely reduced that person to somebody who cannot think. Imagine, I'm telling you, these are real cases. Imagine somebody being chained, and the person is happy and is even justifying why he or she should be chained in the house, because if he goes out or if she goes out, she will be attacked. That's mental abuse. Things happen in marriage. Oh. Mental abuse. Terrible. Let's move on. Then, number 7, we have cultural abuse. Cultural abuse. Cultural abuse is when you carry the culture of your spouse and trash it. For instance, your spouse, there's a way they do things in their own culture, and you tell your spouse that that way is foolish, a cake, does not make sense, outrightly, without reason. Without reason. That's cultural abuse. Making your spouse feel bad about his or her own culture. As long as the culture is good, I'm talking about good culture. I'm not talking about, for instance, culture of killing people. You now say that one. No, that one is bad culture. I'm talking about good culture. Nothing wrong with the culture. But because it's not your culture, you just make it look as if it's less than a culture. That's cultural abuse. It happens. Oh, I see. Smart Timothy says, I met a woman whose husband is a naval officer, but never allows her to go out. She's always at home. That's mental abuse. And if you ask the woman may even be okay with it. She doesn't even know, because of what the husband has told her. There are a lot of abuses that are happening. A lot. Dr. Celestine says, unbelievable things happening. Yes. And because we are quiet about them, they continue to happen. And as they continue to happen, you are demeaning a human being. Some of us are even the ones, some of us who are even listening right now, may be the ones who are abusing our spouses. Maybe it may be cultural abuse. You never knew such a thing was an abuse. Yeah, I'm telling you now, it's an abuse. Because you are making your spouse feel less of his culture or her culture, because your culture probably says something else. And then finally, we have discriminatory abuse. When you discriminate against somebody based on maybe a physical impediment that the person has no control over. The person's look, you discriminate. The person's race, because there are some people, it's like cultural abuse also. You discriminate. You outrightly tell the person, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, I won't do this to you because, and that person is your spouse. These are life things that happen in marriage. So you need to understand these things, and you need to start asking yourself first, before you start pointing the finger out to say, hey, this is what my husband does to me. This is what my wife does to me. How about the one you do to your spouse? And that's why I've pointed this out, so that you can go back, sit down, and ask yourself, am I physically abusing my spouse? I've told you, even pushing your spouse away when you are talking and saying, come on, get out of here, is physical abuse. Am I emotionally abusing my spouse? Do I insult my spouse? Do I use wrong words on my spouse? Am I abusing my spouse sexually, making her do things or making him do things sexually that the person is not interested in? These are all things. These are all types of abuse. So now that we know the types of abuse, and I've told you, look inwards, it is important for us to now know what the causes of abuse are. The causes of abuse. And oh, I see Ogechukwu saying financial abuse. That's a new one. Yeah. That's why we're here talking about it. So let's look at some causes of abuse, because it's important for us to know why. Why is this abuse happening? Why does it happen in home? When you know the why, it might be easier for you to find out the how of resolving it. Number one, I'm sure you can guess number one. This one always comes up. Growing up in an abusive family, that's background. That's background. When you grow up in an abusive family, you will most likely abuse your spouse also, or allow your spouse to abuse you, thinking that it is normal. This is a very big cause of abuse in marriage. Very, very big. And a lot of people don't even know that the things they do are from where they are coming. Every time I am counseling couples and I'm trying to find out why what is happening, and I'm not getting the answer. And as soon as I start asking about their background, where they are coming from, the family they are coming from, I start to see signs of what exactly is happening in their marriage. In fact, I see a replication in some cases, direct replication. So it's very important to know that these things have causes. So let's look at some of the causes of abuse in marriage. Again, after growing up in an abusive family, the second one is lack of empathy. Some people don't have empathy. And this is very possible because nobody empathized with them when they were growing up. So they don't understand empathy. I always tell the story of Mr. Akinropo, who is a coach also, and he told us the story of how he didn't even know what empathy was. Because when growing up, his father never showed empathy. So he didn't understand empathy. He got into marriage and he dealt with his wife the same way he grew up. No empathy. So the wife will complain, I'm sick, and he'll say, go to the hospital. That's all. No, he will not ask. He will not. Children will complain about it. No empathy. You see, when you lack empathy, it's easy for you to abuse your spouse, especially things like emotional abuse, mental abuse. In fact, all the abuses. When you lack empathy, it will be difficult for you not to abuse your spouse. You will abuse in one way or the other. Let's look at the next one. Substance abuse. This one, let's talk about it. Substance abuse. Do you know that there are so many people on substances now? And if you don't understand what we mean by substance, drug use of hard drugs. We have so many people right now in Nigeria. I'm not talking about outside Nigeria. So you may be thinking, he should be talking to those of us that are outside. I'm talking about in Nigeria. The use of drug has become so rampant. And in many cases, some of the things that are happening in homes, both in marriage and in parenting, are as a result of the use of drug by the parents. So people get into substance abuse and it affects the way they do things. It starts from little ones like marijuana, moves up to very serious ones like cocaine, crack cocaine, and there are even more serious ones now than cocaine that people are actually taking. Substance abuse, by the way, includes alcohol. So when you take these substances, it now makes you behave in ways that you normally will not behave. And our doctor is here confirming that substance abuse is a current epidemic in Nigeria. I've had people come to me when they describe the way their spouses do things to them. I ask, is your spouse using? Of course, they try to, they always know. But they try to say, no, he's not really using, sometimes with friends. Once your spouse is under the influence of hard drugs, the possibility or probability of abuse is very, very high. It's very, very high. Dr. Ginika says a colleague had a doctor employee with zero empathy. The guy almost closed up that clinic. That's talking about empathy. So imagine a hospital with no empathy at all. People will stop going there. Recently, I was in a hospital with my wife, and I told her there was a nurse that spoke to us so nicely. And I said, this is how nurses should be. That's empathy, going back to empathy. But let's continue with this substance abuse problem, because it's a big problem. Do you know that even children now of the ages 6 and above, 6, 8, 10, are using substances under your noses and you don't know? All kinds of tablets are moving around in schools, primary schools. All kinds of syrups are moving around. Children are consuming it, and substance abuse is happening. And then, of course, the adults is, even at work, people have substances in their offices that they take. So this is very, very real. Substance abuse is very, very real. And you can see my wife is saying we have not agreed that it's happening. It's happening. Your spouse may be taking substance. He or she may be under the influence of something. Wake up and start seeing the telltale signs. Then let's move again to the next one. The next one is low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. So when the abuser has low self-esteem, you may instigate him or her to abuse you, because you say one or two things, and based on that, the person abuses you. Or the person who is abused has low self-esteem, so allows the abuser to abuse him or abuse her, and the person is not able to even speak up. That's low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is not a good thing in any way. It is a negative thing, low self-esteem. You should have very reasonable high self-esteem, not overestimated self-esteem, but good self-esteem that can make you stand upright and make you even communicate assertively. So we need to really look at these matters, these causes. These are the things, either coming from the side of the abuser or coming from the side of the abused. And then another one, number 5, is a low tolerance for hurt. A low tolerance for hurt. When especially the abuser cannot tolerate hurt. So there are things you do to the person that is a hurt, but there are some hurts that you can tolerate them. Because one way or the other, as spouses, we will hurt each other. And your spouse hurts you more because of love. The presence of love makes it become hurt. If it's not somebody you love, the person may do something to you, and you might not even remember it. But when the person you love does something to you, it turns to hurt. For some people, they don't know how to tolerate hurt, and they react. That reaction is in abuse. It's in abuse. So you need to understand, is my spouse suffering from low tolerance for hurt? Is that the problem? Or am I the one suffering from low tolerance for hurt? And am I lashing out, insulting? I heard somebody saying, I always insult him when he hurts me, and I don't know how to keep things down. The person claimed, this was the claim, that I'm very expressive. Please don't use expressiveness to cover up abuse that you are doing. If you are expressive, use words. Say the things that are happening. You don't need to abuse the person for us to know you are expressive. What are you expressing? So we need to understand that the low tolerance for hurt can actually cause abuse in marriage. And then another thing that can cause abuse in marriage is triggers. Triggers. Some people naturally will not abuse their spouse, but the spouse will trigger the abuse. Now, I'm going to say this using physical abuse, for instance, and I'm not in any way justifying physical abuse. Please hear me and hear me clearly. Physical abuse is wrong, completely wrong, nothing good about it. However, there are triggers. Like I always say, a lion mauling a man is wrong in every way. But how did the man reach the stage where the lion was mauling him at that point in time? So that's the cause that we're looking at. So those triggers may be, you insulting, for instance, your spouse, and your spouse has taken it, has reached the wall, and then now backfires by slapping you, for instance. Now, you have been the one who has triggered that abuse. I have seen spouses who they are so remorseful about the abuse that they meted on their spouse. But when they are telling me the story, I can see how they were triggered intentionally in some cases. Do you know that there are some spouses that I've seen that have said, some women, for instance, that have seen that were in relationships in the past that they were always being beaten. They now get married to somebody who is not violent at all, and they force the person to be violent on them by triggering the person intentionally because they're already used to violence. I've had a woman say, my husband is too gentle, he doesn't even beat me. And I say, madam, you want your husband to beat you? She said, he has to be like a man now. Sometimes when I'm just talking too much, he should just silence me so that I know that he's there. That's trigger. Intentional trigger. So that can be a cause of abuse in marriage. Now let's move a little bit faster. Our time is being spent, and let's not get carried away. But I just have to tell you some of these things so that you understand what exactly is going on, maybe in your home. So why is it that people do nothing when they are being abused? Why? Let's look at some reasons. Number one, fear. So fear can make you do nothing when you are being abused. You are afraid that the person abusing you, if you try anything, try to report or try to seek counsel or something, the person may met upon you even greater violence. You may be afraid that the person will leave you if you try to resolve the issue. You may be afraid of what will society say. Will society now start saying that my wife has been beating me, and so on? So all kinds of fear. So fear is something that can actually make people do nothing about abuse. Another one, which is very, very key, is a lack of knowledge. What you don't know can actually kill you. And it may be a good thing, but it will kill you because you don't know about it. So when you have lack of knowledge, you may be abused or you may be the abuser, and you will not even do anything about it because you don't even know. Like the knowledge that I'm giving you, I heard people saying, oh wow, there is financial abuse. That's knowledge. If you didn't hear it today, now you won't even know that you are financially abusing your spouse, or your spouse is financially abusing you. Somebody is asking, can these triggers be trauma? Yeah, of course. Like the one I told you of the person who was being beaten, the woman who was being beaten, I was asking or triggering the husband to actually, is trauma. Then trauma in the sense of the person just starts to abuse you out of trauma from what it is that he has encountered in, during growing up or something. That's what we're talking about. Growing up in abusive families. Yes, it's trauma. So trauma can be a great trigger. So back to what we were saying, a lack of knowledge. When you don't know and you refuse to learn, you will have issues. And there's so many ways you can learn. But you see, I don't know why we are what's the word? Averse to learning, especially in this part of the world, which is why we have not developed. I saw a picture, a meme, I think it was yesterday I saw it. And they showed BMW and how they started, the first car that they made, and the cars now. You could see the clear difference, of course, in the modernity and everything of the look. Then they now show the palm wine tapper, the way they used to tap, far past before colonial masters even came. and the way they are still tapping today. And the person asks, Nigeria, do we have a problem? Why can't we advance? What's happening to all the engineers? What are they doing? And so we don't want to learn. We like staying where we are, in quotes, in our comfort zone. And unfortunately, that comfort zone can bury you. We are fast to learning. Yeah, my beautiful yellow wife is saying it. We are fast to learning. We are even more averse to paying for learning. The free ones may be a little bit of we'll try, but even to pay for the learning. I was telling somebody recently, I think just yesterday, yes, I was having a session, and I was telling them, I said, my wife and I, before we got married, we invested in books on marriage, about 7 different books. We bought them with money. We paid for courses. We still pay for courses right now to learn. And you are there, you don't want to learn. They're telling you these are things you should learn to help you in your marriage, in your parenting, and you say, oh, it's too much. My wife told a story once of somebody who, when our kids were in primary school, I think the person's child came to our house and saw so many books that our kids had, and went back to the mom and said, we want books. So the mom now takes them, or asks my wife, please, where can we find books? And my wife says, okay, let's go. So they take them to a shop that had both a book place and a clothing place. And they go there to buy books. And the woman sees the cost of the books and says, these books are too expensive. How can a book be this amount? Then goes over, carries the same child, goes over to the clothing place and spent, I think, 50,000. I can't remember the amount. Spent 50,000 naira buying clothes for the child. So it's not too expensive to buy clothes, but it's too expensive to buy books that will teach you and will grow you. How do you think I got to where I am right now? By reading, by learning. People are celebrating our marriage. We just celebrated 15 years. People celebrate our marriage all over the world. How do you think we got to where we are? By learning, consciously learning about things. These abuses, for instance, because we are conscious of it, we make sure we don't fall foul in any of them. Please learn. And that's why I'm happy for those of you who are here, who are watching right now, and those of you who will be catching the replay. I'm happy that you are even learning. So when you don't have knowledge, a lack of knowledge will make you do nothing. Meanwhile, there will be so many things you can do about this abuse issue that will stop the abuse completely in many cases, but you don't have the knowledge. For instance, knowledge on how to even communicate that will not trigger. So somebody already is suffering from a trauma, and you already know that this person's trauma is making the person beat you, for instance. Then you are also not communicating well to the person, so you trigger the beating. Remember, I have said again, there is no justification for beating, but there are triggers. You've seen all those videos where you see a lion in a cage and people are teasing it. There was one, the man now put his hand in the cage. Of course, the lion held the hand, and a lion's jaw, man, you can't get out of it. I don't know how that video, I never saw the end of that video, so I don't know how it ended. But I'm sure the lion cut off his hand. So you triggered the lion. You now want to come back and blame the lion? Yes, the lion, it was wrong for the lion to bite the hand of a human being. But why did you put your hand there? And that's how some of us, in our communications, we kind of put our hands into the lion's den and expect the lion not to bite. The lion will bite. So you need to learn. Right now, there's a course. We are going to be sharing details later on. There's a course on conflict resolution. Question: have you registered for that course? It's happening this month on how you can resolve conflicts effectively between you and your spouse in such a way that you will carry the conflict, talk about it, resolve it, and move on. It won't come up again. Do you know that there's a way to do this? My wife and I right now, we resolve conflicts. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we're done. There are skills to it. Come and learn. Okay, let's move on. Conditioning, number 3. Remember, we're talking about why people do nothing. Conditioning. When you've been conditioned to accept abuse, because it can be conditioning. Like the person that I said is chained in the house and has been conditioned to think that it is actually right. That's conditioning, and it happens. People being brainwashed by their spouses, making it look as if it is okay. It's not okay. All right. Another one is love. Yeah. Love will make somebody stay in an abusive relationship and continue to manage it like that because the person really loves the other person. And then number 5 is children. So your children can actually make you also just do nothing because you just feel, these children, if I try something and this man, this woman decides to divorce me, what will happen to these children? Or I don't want these children to see what it is I'm going through in my marriage. So I'll just, when I'm being abused, I'll just keep quiet about it. And I'll come out and both of us will smile and wave to the children like nothing happened. Good. Now, let's move on. So these are the things, some of the things or the reasons why people actually do nothing when they are being abused. And Smart Timothy, yes, you say that your virtuous wife and I have registered and are waiting for the day to come for the course resolving conflicts in marriage. Congratulations to you. That's a plus for you. All right, let's move on. So what are the steps that you need to take? What are the steps that you need to take if you are being abused? We've told you the types of abuse. We've told you, how the causes of abuse. We've told you why people do nothing. So at least you understand right now if there's any form of abuse happening in your relationship, whether it is you abusing your spouse or your spouse abusing you. Then let's now look at the steps to take. Number 1, if the abuse is physical abuse, run. Did you hear what I just said? Yes, run. Yes, this is your counselor telling you that if your spouse is physically abusing you, run first. Run and save your life. Because physical abuse can very quickly and easily turn into fatality. So we want to avoid fatality at all costs. So first, run. Escape. If you can carry your children, carry. If you cannot carry your children, you escape. Whether you're a man or a woman, run first. Look for a safe place, a friend's place, a relative. Look for somewhere that person, the abuser, cannot reach you easily. Run. From afar, we can start reconciliation. There was a woman that came to me as she was talking. She booked for a counseling session. As she started the counseling session and she talked about abuse, by the time she described the abuse and how bad it was, I said, "Madam, where are you right now?" She said she's at home. "Where's your husband?" He said the husband is not at home. I said, "Do you have money with you?" She said yes. I said, "Leave the house now. Go and check yourself into a hotel that he does not know." We'll continue our session. I said, "This session ends now. Let's just end it now. We won't talk about this session. Please go and first be safe. Then from afar, we can start reconciling. Maybe the madness in the person, when it comes down, you can now come back. So please, we're not saying divorce. I didn't say divorce. I said run first. Run. Separate. Separate first. Then from afar, we can now start dealing with the matter. This is very, very important. Please take this seriously. This is me, your counselor, who will normally, my job is to reconcile. My job is to mediate and reconcile. I don't handle divorce. People have come to me before and said, "Oh, coach, we want to get divorced. Please tell us the things we need to do." I tell them, "Please go and look for a divorce lawyer. But while you are here, let me teach you reasons why you should not divorce." So I am all for reconciliation. But when it's physical violence, first, I say it again, run. Don't say, "Oh, he just slaps me." From the slapping, or she just punched me in the stomach. From that one day, the person may just take a knife. And in the madness, in that air of madness, many people that commit murder, or is it manslaughter, we'll call it, I don't even know. People that kill their spouses, many of them did not intend to kill, but rage made them do it. So run. Number 2, acknowledge that you are being abused. or acknowledge that you are abusing your spouse. Whichever one you fall into, acknowledge. Name it. Now we've mentioned the 8 different types of abuses. Those are major types, the other types, but 8 major types of abuses. So name it. Which one are you doing against your spouse? Name it. Give it a name. Financial abuse, because that's the new one that people didn't know. I am financially abusing my spouse. Go and write it down somewhere in that your jotter, so that you can see it, and you can, what you write down, you can act. It's easier for you to act on. So please acknowledge that you are being abused, or that you are abusing your spouse. Acknowledge it. Accept that that is what is happening. Don't run away from the truth. Number 3, seek knowledge. What did I say? Seek knowledge. You need knowledge. There is a lot of knowledge that you can get that the abuse will just fizzle out. I've had too many people who said, my wife that used to insult me has stopped insulting me after we did what you asked us to do. Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge from books. Seek knowledge from courses. Seek knowledge from programs. We have a program at the Marriage Seal Academy called the Couples Conclave. It's an annual program, and I can see many conclavites here. It's an annual program every year from January to December, November of the year. We will just work together. We just work together throughout the whole year, teaching ourselves, giving knowledge on marriage, reminding ourselves, because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to constantly be in remembrance. Reminding ourselves of the things that we need to do. Seek knowledge. Stop running away. When last did you read a book? Some of us, if we want to be honest, like I always say, since you dropped that your pen in your undergraduate exam, that your degree exam, after dropping that pen, you've not read one book, whether it is a inspirational book, religious book, novel, you've not read one. There are people that are listening to me that are like that. Please seek knowledge. The knowledge is there everywhere for you to seek. Buy and read. Do courses. I just mentioned the course, Resolving Conflicts in Marriage. And if you are looking for how to register for that course, Resolving Conflicts in Marriage, the details are on the screen right now. Yeah, the details are going to be on the screen in a few minutes, and then you can now, plan. And if you want more details, reach out to our team members. Our team members will give you all the details that you need to know, and the number is scrolling down there on your screen, so that you will know how to register for that course. That course is a course that no couple should miss. Don't miss it. If you can hear me right now, whether you are watching this afterwards or you are here live with us, ensure you register for this course. It will change your marriage entirely. Some of those things that are happening in your marriage, including abuse, will be resolved by this course. Because if you know how to resolve conflicts, you'll be able to sit down with your spouse, talk about the things that are happening, including the abuse, and move forward in your life. So ensure that you register for that course. And then the next thing is stop the triggers. We spoke about triggers. I spoke about how you trigger your spouse into doing that abuse, which is not as if the abuse is right, but you know yourself that you triggered him, you triggered her, So you need to be able to work out, stop that trigger. All right. Then let's move on. The next one is seek counseling. So when you've tried on your own, you've read books, you've done courses, and things are not getting better, or things are slowly getting better, please seek counseling. I've said it and I'll say it again. That you are coming for counseling does not mean you are crazy, because that's the way we look at it in this part of the world. When you hear that somebody has gone for counseling, you say, does the person is there a cuckoo somewhere in the brain of the person? No, that's not what it means. It just means you need somebody who will sit down with you, listen to you, and help you to make the right decision. Because ultimately, you are the one that will eventually make the decisions. The counselor just helps you. That's what I do. I just help you to make the right decision, or help you to see the right perspective. So please seek counsel. It's important. A counselor can save your life. So don't overlook it. Seek counsel. And then eventually, number 6, pray. Pray to God. God is the one who has the power to turn anybody's mind. He says in his word that he is the one, he has the heart of kings in his hands. The heart of a king is in the Lord's hands, and like rivers of water, he turneth it whither he will. Anywhere he wants it to go, he can turn it. Anything he wants the heart of the person to do, he can turn it. He has the power. God has the ultimate power. So pray. Ask God to touch the heart of your spouse that is abusing you. If you are the abuser, ask God to touch your heart so that you will stop abusing, because one day you will abuse your spouse and your spouse will be hurt. If it's physical abuse, your spouse may even die. So don't hide behind, oh, I'm a pastor, I'm a deacon, I'm a bishop, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, I'm a doctor. Don't hide behind all those masks. If you are being abused, you are being abused. There's no title to somebody who is being abused. When the person goes to the grave, God forbid, out of abuse, there's no title. They won't say because the person is this, the person will not be dead. You are dead, you are dead. So please, please, and please, I beg of you, ensure that you pray to the ultimate Father to help you. All right, so this is where we're going to come to the end of today's session, today's Friday Live, and I'm excited, just like you are, to be back again Friday, and we're going to continue like this every Friday. We come up with a very, very hot topic, we discuss it, and give you a roadmap on the steps that you need to take. And today we have agreed on those steps that we need to take. We've told you that you should run if it's physical abuse. You should acknowledge the abuse. We've told you to seek knowledge. Please seek knowledge. We've told you to stop the triggers. You know, you who is triggering that abuse, you know, stop it. And we've told you to seek counseling. Counseling is so important. And I counsel couples every day from Mondays to Fridays, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm counseling couples from all over the world. So this is something that you should take advantage of and come in for counseling. Just one session of counseling can actually change the trajectory of your marriage, like it has done for many, many places. Okay, and I'm sure there are people here who have come under my counseling, and they will agree, they will attest that after we discussed, they were able to have better light of what is happening, and they were able to take the right steps. And then finally, we have said that you should pray. You should pray. And so, yes, Pearl is here, says, I'm a proud conclavite. That's the place to be. Yeah, if you are asking, who is a conclavite? Conclavites are people in the couples conclave. Now, very quickly, if you have any questions in the next 2 minutes, put it in the chat room so that we can quickly attend to it and close for the day. While we're waiting for the questions to come out of the chat room, let me remind you of the course that I talked about. So we're having this very important course, Resolving Conflicts in Marriage. And resolving conflicts in marriage is going to be a game changer for many, many, many marriages. It's a course that is going to help you to identify the causes of conflicts. It will help you identify the causes of conflicts. It will help you also identify the skills you need for conflict resolution. It will also help you to identify how to avoid a reoccurrence of that conflict. And the course is going to happen between the 26th and the 27th of April. Yours truly will be the one facilitating the course. It's going to be fun. 2 days, 8 p.m. to 9:30 every evening for those 2 days. And when you come and you leave, you will know that you left with something. I say it again, when you come and you leave, you will know that you actually left with something. And the details for how to register are there on the screen. And if you want further details on the course, you can reach out to our number that is there on the screen, and they'll give you everything that you need. Okay. So can I see any questions? Can I see any questions? Okay, Ogechuku says, this is our major setback in life, thinking we can pray in knowledge without intentionally seeking it. Yeah, you pray, but you need knowledge. So you pray, but you need knowledge. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, and you have registered for the course. All right, great, 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 great. Since I started taking this in for myself first, things are changing. Oh, beautiful. Happy, happy, happy to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, no questions right now. I've given you people plenty to think about. Remember, as we live today, you may actually be the abuser. So go and check yourself. Make sure you're not abusing physically, you're not abusing emotionally, you're not abusing sexually. You're not. Remember, sexual abuse is also when you deprive your spouse of sex. That's also abuse. So you're not abusing intellectually, you're not abusing financially, you're not abusing mentally, you're not abusing culturally, you're not abusing in a discriminatory manner. These are the things that you should look out for. God bless you all. See you again next week. And make sure you register for this course, please. It's very, very important that you register for the course that is coming up, resolving conflicts in marriage. God bless you all, and see you when we meet next.